Ladies and gentlemen, in the chess world, we seem like we sometimes don't even have one day go by without some drama. And today was no different. Actually yesterday, it's unbelievable. I'm starting a recording of my recap and someone decides to drive their motorcycle super loud on the street, right? I'm not even gonna cut it. You know what? I don't care. It's late at night. I'm recording this recap. This is what it's like to live in New York City, all right? Motorcycle outside. First time ever in a Gotham recap. Anyway, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, yesterday, Hikaru's account was banned on Twitch. Yes, you heard that right. But not because of anything he said or did, really. A couple of days ago, there's a big streamer named Dr. Disrespect, and he was playing some chess, and Hikaru put his stream up on his own stream just to spectate the game. But because Dr. Disrespect is banned on Twitch, this is against the Twitch terms of service, and for that, Hikaru suffered a 3-day ban. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, I get it's the rules or whatever, but I mean, let the guy have a break. He's trying to play in the Grand Prix, and we are going to kick things off with his game against Andrei Sipenko. But now they can't even broadcast his games. Can't even broadcast the next 3 days of his games. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, that's what happened. That's what happened. Among all the other drama in the chess world, now Hikaru has to suffer with this too. He made a statement. He already talked about it, but it's ridiculous. Anyway, very big matchup for Hikaru. He has to get a win here in the second round of the Grand Prix after suffering a loss to Levon Ranyan. Going into this Grand Prix, Hikaru had a 40 or 50% chance of qualifying. With that loss in round 1 to Levon, Hikaru's chances are now down to 8% to qualify for the candidates, which is nuts. So he's got to get a win. And what better way to do that than to play into a main line, forcing a Nimso Indian with e3 and now bishop d2. So bishop d2 is most certainly not a main line, but here's the idea of the move bishop d2. The point is that Hikaru wants to play takes and bishop d3. And in these positions, after everybody develops all their pieces, White likes to put the knight on e5. Now, you might wonder, why has Black not committed this knight? Because you're not 100% sure what exactly White wants to do. For example, if you play knight bd7 in this position, that is possible. People do that, but then White might change the game plan a little bit. So Black waits a while, sees what White wants, and actually even here doesn't develop the knight. Plays bishop back to f8. So rook to e8 and then bishop sliding all the way back. The bishop sort of served its purpose, and now before it turns into a target for the white pieces, it goes back to f8, then Black will expand and Black will see what's up. But now Hikaru gets to play f4, and visually I find these positions to look super, super nice for White. You now go c5 with Black, that's obviously what I just said, and now this bishop, which is kind of stuck behind all these dark squared pawns, ventures its way out to h4 to potentially trade itself off for this knight, or bishop f2 to support, bishop f2 to support the pawn and the center. So that's exactly what happens, and now we have a6. Now, this is this moment in the game when Hikaru's got that light squared bishop pointed at the king. He's got the knight confident in the middle of the board. It's not being taken because then you would just open up the f file. And he plays one more preparatory move. He plays a3 so that now nothing can go to b4. And this is really the moment in the game. What do you do? So, like, if you're playing White here, what's next? How do you put your foot on the gas? Do you play queen f3? Like, I can't draw arrows right now. Queen f3. Do you just bring a rook? Do you play the stockfish move? Stockfish here is looking at g4. G4 is a crazy move. I wonder if you can even play g4 without playing a3. I don't think so, because I think there might be something coming to b4. But g4 is crazy, and I mean, Stockfish is constantly recommending this. The point is that if Black just plays a random move, I mean, like rook c8, g5. If the knight goes back to d7, I mean, queen h5, bishop takes h7. This is the point. This is how close we are to Black just getting absolutely blasted off the board. So there's a lot of attacking potential here. Hikaru decides to play a little bit patient. And even here, there's a moment like White can go bishop h4 to remove the knight. He can play g4 potentially. Again, Hikaru brings his queen, and both sides are like primed and ready for the battle. But suddenly, after knight a5, Yesipenko makes it clear that he'd like to go to c4, and Hikaru has one final chance. He has one final moment. He can actually play g4 now. One final opportunity. He can, like, get this attack going, show on the road. I mean, I think I'm sure that at all these moments he was considering g4. Knight e4 here seems to be the issue with Black. Black shoves the knight into the middle. If you take here on e4, black takes on e4, bishop e4, and there's a lot to calculate here. Namely, for example, like let's say rook takes c1, rook c1, bishop e4, queen e4, and then f6. And now the knight is pinned to the queen. Apparently, b4 here is good for white, and rook c3, knight d2 attacks the queen, and queen back to e2, and the knight's kind of stuck. Knight c4 you can even take, and now, I mean, how many moves did I just calculate? Like 10, basically. Much easier to do when you're a spectator, and also when you have stockfish, right? It's not the easiest thing in the world to just go g4 and calculate all that. Hikaru plays b4. He invites Yesipenko's knight in and immediately removes it, but his bishop is no longer part of the attack, and Yesipenko gets his knight to e4 and begins firing away on the queen side. He's like, all right, if you're not going to do anything, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start taking the queen side pawns. And a couple moves later, he picks up b4, and he's just better. He's just better. He's got the 4 pawns all together, e, f, g, h. These pawns are split. The bishops are very good. And Hikaru starts speeding up because actually right around here, Computer was trying to say that if black plays f5 and relaxes, black is almost -2 in advantage. It's hard to find exactly where that's coming from, but I guess, you know, Stockfish is a savage sometimes and gives completely absurd evaluations, and that happens. But I'm actually making the thumbnail for this video as I record it. There you go. Life of a YouTuber. I'm going to be recording 2 recaps a day, like in early 2021. Remember those days? Gotham was making 2 videos a day. Crazy times. Rook b2, though. And this game went 64 moves, which is nice because there are 64 squares on a chessboard. It's nice and picturesque. And Hikaru was under pressure for most of them. But as I click the forward arrow, you'll kind of notice that no progress is being made. Yesipenko is better, and he has opportunities like bishop takes d4. Bishop takes d4, e3. Knight e4, bishop e4, king g1. And something like this, where apparently in this position, white struggles to take this pawn because of queen a2. You know, Yesipenko has some opportunities. He basically never does anything. And the game ends with the trade of pieces and a repetition of moves. Yesipenko was better. Just couldn't find the way through. Couldn't find that opportunity. Good defense by Hikaru 2 days in a row. Today he holds. He's got to get a win, though. He's got 4 more games. I mean, he doesn't have to do anything. He could just chill and, you know, eat some food and fly home and, you know, end the tournament and fly home. But he's got 4 games. He's got to win a game. Obviously, we're all cheering for the man, and he's in a tough spot because he's now got to get revenge on Levon, and that's in 2 rounds. Next game from Group A is Levon versus Apaydin. This one was an e4, e5 battle, and they followed a very trendy game, actually, up until move 12. They followed David Howell versus Nils Grandelius in a match that was played 2 weeks ago. They played the Sweden versus England match. And a really interesting game where, yes, if you're looking at the attackers and defenders on this correctly, black wins a pawn. So black is just a clean pawn up. But rook d3. I don't know how this rook on a1 gets to d3, but Levon is a very creative man, and he begins an attack. So he is down a pawn. He has 6 pawns to his opponent's 7, but he's got knight f5 coming. He's got f4 coming. The rook will come to g3. Knight g6 is a threat, right? Pinning. So black here plays the shocking knight d5, which hangs a piece in 4 different ways, meaning they all cover that. But this, now we have queen h5, knight back to f6, and we could have a repetition of moves, but now we have danger levels, right? Both queens hit. g4, knight comes to f4, and we begin a series of exchanges. Levon kind of throws an interesting opening idea out there. Nothing comes of it, and we begin exchanges. Levon picks up the queenside pawn back here in a moment. I think he could have just picked it up immediately, but he, I don't know, you know, a little too creative for his own good. Finally took on b5. And here we begin mass simplification. And on move 40, the players agreed to a draw. That was the game. Yeah, sometimes that's how it goes at top level. You know, Levon's got white. He's already coming off a win. Levon's got great pairings, by the way, I have to say. Starting with white against Hikaru, it's not a great pairing per se, but with that win and playing white against Apaydin, I mean, Apaydin's a very strong GM, but of the 4 in the group, he is the weakest between himself, Hikaru, Yesipenko, and Aranyan. So Aranyan, you know, he throws out an opening experiment, sacrifices a pawn to get an interesting attacking position. Apaitin defends perfectly. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Like, that's chess. So Levon continues to maintain the lead in Group A, as everybody has made a draw. And we go to Group B. Here we have Daniil Dubov, yesterday coming off the loss against Lenier Dominguez. And he's looking to make make a statement by winning against Mamedyarov. And he plays something very exotic, right? We have an E45. Notice the difference in the structures between the two games. Here we have the pawns E4, D3, C3, and here we have E4, D3, and the knight is actually coming to C3, A4. Dubov, although there you see C3, but the difference, of course, being that in the future, maybe I will take here. Or maybe I will never take at all. I'll just leave you in this permanent state of expecting me to take at some, I don't know, weird stuff here from Dubov. Then he plays C4. And then he plays C5. He doesn't take at all. What? Daniil, what do we do? What? I thought the whole point was to take the bishop. What are we doing here? I don't understand anything. Now the knight ends up trading for the bishop. Okay. Yeah, rook is going to take on b7, so he does have a little bit of pressure, but Mamedyarov just throws the pawn forward. And here we got to drop a brick, because we did not get en passant, right? There was no en passant. If you don't know the en passant brick meme, no worries, no worries. It's incredibly immature stuff, but it is also for the high culture society of chess. Yeah, I mean, nothing happened in this game. So there was a lot of build-up, but the players just had enough and just decided to repeat moves. Look how funny it is, too. Like, Daniil plays here, and Mamedyarov's like, well, he can attack my rook. I'm gonna just move it. And Daniil's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back. And Mamedyarov could go back. He could also just not. He could, like, try to play knight. I don't know, but they just repeat moves. Two super GMs in the wild. What are you gonna do? This game, though, in Group B, oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. This one was insane. So... yeah, Dominguez Perez won yesterday against Dubov, and he did not take his foot off the gas. All right, my man went after it. So we have a Rue Lopez, we have the Arkhangelsk, the neo or modern Arkhangelsk with Bishop C5, and we have C3, B5, and this variation where the black bishop on C5 gets booted around a little bit. A4 is also very common in these sort of positions. But Lenier doesn't do it. He doesn't play A4. He just defends the center. This cannot be taken because this is a fork, and that would be extremely embarrassing for the Grand Prix, so that doesn't happen. We have a lot of pawns building up. Takes, knight B4, and queen E2 prevents the knight from getting a little bit too comfortable. C5, A3, and now the game explodes. Keimer doesn't defend his knight, counterattacks the bishop. Lenier takes the knight. Keimer takes the bishop. I mean, what is this? What is that ice cream back in the day with white, you know, it's like alternating. I forgot the name. A Dixie cup? Is that what that is? I'm going to look this up. Dixie cup. Yeah, something like this. Dixie cup ice cream? Or no? I don't remember. Oh no, yeah, the thing with the half. Oh my God. Wow, look at me. Well, I'm shocked I remembered that. Yeah, vanilla and chocolate, right? So now knight takes e4. Now, if you look at this, this could just be taken. But the idea is bishop f5, right? So the board absolutely erupts in tactics here, all right? Bishop takes h6. What? So if you take, the point is that I'm going to take with my rook. Now you can't pin me because this is check, and then I take your bishop. If you take my rook, I go here, your rook is hanging, and then I'm going to go attack your king. I'm going to bring all the rest of my pieces. Bishop h6, Keimer doesn't take the bishop, so the bishop is just hanging. Dominguez Perez still sacks the rook. I mean, he still takes with the rook, sacking it now, right? Bishop takes. So Keimer doesn't take with the bishop. Why not? Obviously, he didn't like something. I don't know what he didn't like, though, because... I don't know. I don't know what he didn't like. He must have not liked something, but I don't know what he didn't like. But this is, yeah, I don't know. I mean, black has two rooks. But he plays rook takes, and then he just goes like this. So now there are two hanging pieces. Black is just a piece down. The bishop attacks the queen. We go here. The knight is still pinned to the queen. The knight moves. There are now two hanging queens. The bishop can take the queen, the knight can take the queen. Bishop takes the knight. So the white queen is still hanging and calmly takes the b pawn. Bishop back to f8, and Lenier's not done. I mean, his pieces are still chugging along, and he's a pawn up. But black has the bishop pair, and black has good compensation. Also, white's pawns are a little bit stupid looking, so everything is okay, right? F3, bishop f5, the queen moves, and we have Lenier going for this position. So Lenier deliberately trades his powerful knight for black's bishop, and says, all right, in the long run, I'll trade queens, I'll trade rooks, and I'm going to win this endgame because I have the 3-on-2. Opposite color endgames with bishops are drawn, but I'm going to walk my king, win your a6 pawn, win these pawns, and win the game. All right, Lenier, let's do it. So he begins slowly expanding. He's like, oh, wow, shocking. This youngster doesn't know how to play endgames. I'm going to trade the rooks. That's exactly what I want. At some point, I'm going to, look at this, expansion, right? H4, H5, taking some space. Now I'm going to let him trade like this, so I have the 2-on-1. And a little bit later, Keimer is going to say, I've had enough. Queen trade. I have had enough. Let us trade the queens. This is a draw. Opposite colored endgames are draws because you can't win my pawns. So we begin the expansion process, right? We start playing king f4, king back to f8, g5, king g7, and bishop e1, bishop f7, king g4. Notice how neither side is capturing the other. So bishop e6, king f4, nobody's capturing. Bishop takes h5, g takes f6. So somewhere around here, maybe here it was, like king g7. I think what I saw was that if white sacrifices the h-pawn and doesn't get the pawn structure that we got in the game, that white has winning chances. I don't remember exactly when that was, but there was a moment, not like g6, like you can't play g6. The reason that you can't play g6 is because your king will never get past, right? So you can't do this. You've sort of barricaded yourself out of the position. But there was a moment a little bit later in this game where instead of playing bishop h4 and losing his pawn, Lenier could have maybe played h6 and tried in some way to get his king this way. There was like one very brief moment where it was possible. I don't even exactly remember where it was. Like instead of playing g5, he could have played bishop e1, king e7, bishop h4, king g7, and like now g5. And the point is that if you take and bishop takes, this is a winning endgame. Because the king gets in and the pawn is a decoy. And if g5, bishop f7 this way, white can apparently cause some chances by maybe playing king or playing h6, king g6, something like this, and trying to run in this way. But I think it's still a draw. I don't know. I mean, he tried his damn hardest. He had some pretty decent chances, but I could have sworn somewhere there was some way he could have done it. The way it went in the game was that he took an h5, he took an f6, and the black king just gets the e6. And even though white can make as much progress and even win the a6 pawn, I think it's a draw. I think it's just a draw. Yeah, he tried. Sorry, my moves are starting to glitch a little bit because it's late in the game. And yeah, there's nothing. So even in opposite colored bishops, being up 2 pawns isn't anything. And we play. And you'll even notice he didn't take this because this is apparently still a draw. Crazy. Yeah. Sad. Crazy. Not the most interesting thing to analyze, but it was interesting while it lasted. Group C. Maxime Vacher-Lagrave, yesterday coming off a loss, looking to put a statement on Sam Shanklin. This game was really funny. So it was a Berlin, which is fine. If you're going to play solidly with black in the Ruy Lopez, you're going to play the Berlin. And it was actually a Berlin wall. So an endgame. D4, knight D6, takes, knight F5, takes. Kasparov Kramnik in the year 2000, all the time. MVL here likes to play H3. He likes to play this H3 line, and then ultimately he pushes these pawns. Shanklin plays a sideline. He plays bishop D7. It's not the most popular move. And then Shanklin really plays a sideline. So this position As absurd as it looks, I promise. I mean, this is a real thing. This has happened 50 times. And normally black plays h6 here, removing the knight comes back, and MVL himself has played this. Sam Shankland here plays a move that's been played twice, and that move is f5. This move has been played twice in the span of about 3 days in the year 2014 by Luke McShane and David Howell from England against Fabiano Caruana. Both of those games proceeded en passant. Knight attacks bishop, knight takes bishop, pawns blockade the bishop, h5 and king to f2 in order to meet takes, rook g8 with the defense of the king. Or the rook. Probably the rook. Probably not the king. All those games went the same way. One of them went c5, and I think the other one went b6, or h takes g4. And in this position, Sam Shankland plays a new move. He plays a new move, and that move is b6. And on a high depth, the engine says that b6 is very comfortable for black. b6, I think before this, bishop c6 was played, and Caruana went on to win that game. b6 intends to defend like this. The rook defends everything stubbornly. White is not taking on h5 because that would lose the f5 pawn. And Shankland does something just unbelievable here. He gets his rook taken in the corner, and then he takes on g4. So he doesn't take the rook back, instead opting to go for the bishop with check and the pawn. So Shankland gives up the rook, but gets a bishop and 2 pawns, and that's it. Somehow, the Berlin Wall, the Berlin kind of fence over here, is impenetrable. The knight covers any rook move. The bishop covers this rook move. I mean, both rooks are covered there. This will never get taken because black can defend it very easily. And even with a rook trade, in this position, MVL, instead of trying to attack the wall, repeated moves. Well, he played rook h8 check and he offered a draw. He decided not to pursue the game after king b7, which is pretty wild. That this position, apparently for black, is just holding. I don't know. Would you lose it? Probably with both colors. Would I lose it? Probably with both colors. I don't know. I guess the point is that all the pawns are on the same side. So, like, even in a worst case scenario, if white were to, like, I don't know, something like this, knight b5, rook f6, like, even in this case scenario, because black's pawns are so solid and are on this side of the board, it's unlosable. So MVL doesn't even try. He's just like, all right, draw. Top level chess, what are you going to do? Predke versus Wesley So. Good prep, though, from Shankland, you have to say. I mean, honestly, very good preparation. Predke versus Wesley So. This one is, again, we see this e4, e5 with d3, c3. This time we do have a4, bishop a7, knight d2, and white goes for a queenside expansion. So we saw Dubov do kind of something like this, but with a knight here. It's honestly, all these games are sort of little master classes in e4, e5 positions. We saw Aranyan play rook a3, sack the pawn on d4 and put his rook on d3. This is a much more closed battle, like very closed. But Wesley attacks the middle of the board with the move d5, right? So he has this opportunity to play d5. It's a very risky move, though, because white is ready, and white now advances into his position with the move b5. If you just, fall asleep at the wheel for a second, you're just going to lose material. You're going to lose the game. So knight e7, c4, and this just looks really pleasant for Predke. So this is 2 days in a row now. He's put some serious pressure with the white pieces. He's got a very nice position. He's creating a nice initiative. Takes, knight attacks the rook defends, and now a nice little tactic here, knight e3. Isn't this just a free knight? No. Takes, rook d1, and kabam. Knight e3 is a nice move. Wesley's actually under some serious pressure. This queen side's about to go c5, c6. Wesley finds a good move here, queen e8, getting the queen out of the sandwich of the rooks. Knight f5, and now calm. Rook d7 retreat. Predke continues to move forward, but look at this counter shot. And here, Predke has to find rook e1. He finds it, kicks the queen out, retreats, b takes a6, and now the next wave. So the next wave, we're going this way. I might take on f6. I might sacrifice something. Rook b8, queen c3. And in this position, after queen d8, Prech could continue by playing something like queen b3, protecting against rook d1. Instead, he gets a check, and the players agree to a draw. Levy, stop. I've been watching this recap for 25 minutes. Every single one of these games, you commentate like this, and every one of them ends in a draw, damn it. Listen, I don't play the games. Don't be mad at me, all right? I'm recording my second video of the day. I streamed for 3 hours earlier. I got insane allergies, all right? My eyes feel like they're about to burst. I'm still doing it. I'm still here, all right? Bear with me. I know that sidebar looks real good right now with your sports highlights videos or Minecraft or music videos or whatever the heck you watch on YouTube. But we got to go to Group D, all right? I promise this will be quick. All right, so this one between Nikita Vityugov, who's the leader of Group D. All right, all hail the leader of Group D. Bishop b5 check against Yu Yangyi. He plays this kind of suffocating type of variation, an anti-Sicilian, where he delays the move d4 for a while, a very long time. He builds up his pawns first, and then he brings his rook because the d file is going to open, and now d4. Now you might ask, well, if you see white is going to do this, why don't you play e5? Very legitimate point, but then you surrender d5, right? So there's this. Not to mention there are motifs like knight e1, knight c2, knight e3, and then putting a knight on d5 or f5. So Yu Yangyi is like, I'm good with this. I don't care. Let me real quick drive my queen out here, and then I'm going to drive my queen over to h5. Yu Yangyi is like, look at me, zoom, zoom. Yeah, Vityugov can just play h3 here and chill for a little bit. His position's very comfortable. He does it in a different way. Position's looking very comfortable. Yu Yangyi reroutes his bishop to g7. Plays rook c6. And then they repeat moves. And that takes me to my final game of the day in Group D. Amin Tabatabai versus Anish Giri. This one was a Slav defense. Anish goes for a6. This is known as the Shibanenko Slav. Chelyabinsk? No, Chelyabinsk is a different variation. Shibanenko, it has other names. a6 Slav. And Tabatabai decides not to play any of the critical main lines and instead plays an exchange Slav. So now we just basically have a completely symmetrical position. Now it gets a little weird because Anish actually voluntarily gives up the bishop pair in an attempt to create an imbalance. So Anish does play in a pretty exciting way. He's trying to complicate matters. And matters do get complicated very soon when we have a bishop trade and a queen trade. And, Tabatabai is like, all right, dude, if you're going to let me damage your structure and advance on the queen side, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And look at this. Anish now has 7 pawns on light squares. So if you really thought the light squared bishop for white was going to get anywhere in this game, it's not. We are now looking at the empty squares and the infiltration points, the rooks, and we're also looking at pawn breaks. White cannot achieve this because this is very weak. Can black achieve e5? That will be the $1 million question. Oh, wow. He literally achieves it on the very next move. Gotham, you're so smart. How do you know these things? You should watch my video on close positions. I'm just saying, all right? Knight takes e5. You should also buy my courses. Right now, it's like the last day of the 40% off sale if you use code 20. That's from their most recent Win at Chess episode. d4, another pawn break. Look at this. He's offering him a pawn for free because it would do damages to his structure. He's really shoving this pawn forward. I mean, he's really trying to prove a point. This pawn has made it to the other side of the board. How is this even here? But it's going to get taken in a moment. Knight c3 is going to get captured. It does get captured, but not before. The b2 pawn is lost. And after some dilly-dallying and some interesting kind of complications, the players agree to a draw on move 43 after trading a bunch of rooks and a pair of rooks and getting into an endgame of rook and knight. I'm tired. The most interesting thing that happened in this video was Hikaru getting banned on Twitch for 3 days. And also the linear game was pretty good. All right? Don't hate me. The players made 8 draws today. What do you want me to do? Skip a recap? Then you guys are going to be mad anyway. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to go take a walk with Lucy and the dog. All right? He's got to take one last, little dookie outside before we put him to bed. I don't know why I'm sharing this. All right, I don't know. We got the motorcycle outside. This is what happens when the games are terrible. All right, I just sit here and I ramble. But this is kind of like how my Twitch streams are. You should go follow. But be careful watching with the kids. It's not always family friendly. That's all. That's all. I'm gonna take a sip of my. I bought sparkling green tea with grapefruit and mint, and it had no sugar in it. It tastes gross. It tastes like sewer water that got a little bit of a flavor treatment. Anyway, I'm done. All right, I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow. Get out of here.